Hi, Joe Cerrone.
And Al Roseanne.
Welcome to CAD 136 in our weekly Zoom classroom meeting. Alrighty, so we're continuing to work on our bank plan. The last day to turn in assignments will be May 10th, and so we still have 3 weeks almost to get all of our work done. And as we look at how things are laying out here, um, Module 6 is due next week. If you need an extension, you can get an extension, but we're not looking for it to be super duper detailed. Do your best. We want to be able to continue to work on our modeling. We'll put out a practice exam for the final exam, and then we'll have the final exam due on the 10th, and that'll be a multiple choice type exam. We're not going to have a drawing component to it. We just want to be able to verify everybody's identity and that questions that we'll be putting into the final exam will be from the end of the chapters of the textbook that we're taking the problems from. If we go to our content section, you have the choice of either the log cabin or the bank floor plan, and we're modeling the lobby teller areas and the vault area, and we're using Design Center to pull in some of those details. So I thought it would be kind of neat to take a look at the lobby teller area and the vault door. And so what I did is I used a technique where I went out on Google and I looked for geometry for a vault door. And so I went and I Googled bank vault blueprints, and I found some interesting blueprints here. And so this one was really nice, in good line quality. And so what I did was I captured it with a snip tool, and then I saved it. And so what you can do is you can capture that with the snipping tool, and then you can save it to the same directory that you're keeping your lab 6 in, because it'll tie that to the geometry. And then what I did was I came into the drawing itself and I inserted it as a raster image. And so I have a couple of them because this is kind of the look that I'm going to go for with my bank vault. And so it's just slightly different. The wheel is off to the side on the authors, but everything else looks like I can kind of model it. And so what I did was I made a layer called vault, and then I inserted a raster image. And here's my vault 1, my vault 2. Like I said, keep them in the same directory because they're tied together. And then I just said open, and I just kind of made it by eye to about the size that I wanted it to be. And then after I put that geometry in, I'm just going to go through and kind of glean off some of the dimensions here. And so from a top view, I just created a circle and another circle. And then what I can do is I can just sort of create a simple model of it by going to an isometric view. And what I like to do is I like to model them kind of on the floor. You can see I've started to model the countertops and things over here as well. I'll come back to that. But depending on your modeling abilities, what we can do is we can turn on and off the layer for certain things. And so what I'll do is I'll make a layer called image. And I'll turn that layer off for right now, and I'll toggle it on and off as we go through so I can see the model for it. And then what I'll do is I'll toggle that layer off for my image layer. It is off already, and I'll put this on that layer. And then I'll say okay. And then as we create this, a few different ways, to create it, but essentially we can just go and extrude our vault. And I'm just going to bring that down. Let's just say it's going to be a 4-inch thick vault. And then we can take the other geometry, I'm going to go to a wireframe, and then I'm going to go here, and a couple of different ways that we could do it. One would be to draw a circle at one of the quadrants, and I'll just kind of eyeball that. And then what we can do is we can take that circle and we can sweep it around the geometry. What I need to do is to go into a 3D workspace. And then if I go and I take the UCS and I'm going to put it right in the center here, I'm just going to say UCS and then O for origin. I'll put it right here so I can see the orientation. UCS icon. Make sure that it's on. And so I'm not sure why it's not showing up, but let's say we want to take that and we want to sweep it. We'll sweep it around that geometry, and then we get something that looks just like the vault door that we're kind of going for. And then if we go through and take a look at it in conceptual, what we would do is let's bring that up slightly with the 3D move. And so I have to turn back on my toolbar whenever I switch workspaces. Here's my tools, toolbars, AutoCAD. I like to have the modeling on there. A lot of these commands are out there, I just can't always find them. Tools, toolbars, AutoCAD. I like to have properties on. And then as I work with this, I'm going to just go through and go back to a 2D wireframe. I'll 3D move this. And I think I'll bring this in here with it. I'll grab the Z-axis and I'll just bring that up, let's just say 6 inches. And then if I go back to my wireframe conceptual, that looks quite good. I can go back to my top view. I can come back and take a look at how my vault door looks. And then I can go through and toggle back on my layer for my image. And so I'll go back to my image layer, put that back on, collapse my layer menu here, and then I can go through and create something like the door frame. And so if I come over here, and I'm currently on my layer for my vault, and so I'll continue to model like the door opening here. And so what I would do is I would go, you want closed polygon shapes, and you can either draw them with lines or you can draw them with a polyline. I'm going to try just with a polyline, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come in here and just sort of make this look the way that I want it to. Undo that one. Let's turn off our O snap. And we'll create this geometry here for it. Looks like I have my 3D O snap on as well. There we go. And so I have a basic shape here, and I can soften up the corners a little bit if I get an idea of my lengths of my geometry. Let's get out of conceptual. That tends to glitch it. And if I look at the length, it's about 10. So we could put a nice 2-inch radius on these fillets. And so we'll say fillet radius, we'll say 2. I'll put a fillet right here. And then we'll do one more fillet with a larger radius. Let's go with a 5-inch radius for this one and that one. And that looks good. We'll go and we'll turn off our layer for the image. And then what we can do is we can take this boundary shape and we can go into an isometric view, zoom in on it, and then this part right here is 4 inches tall, and so what we'll do is we'll extrude this one 4 inches as well. See how that looks. We can grab an isometric view, render that, or at least give it a conceptual view, and this looks good. And so as we go through, we can use some other commands to add some color to it. We can either put them on different layers, or we can use our toolbar for 3D modify. I believe it's solids editing will allow us to change colors. Yeah, so we can color edges, we can copy the edges. I'm just going to put it on a different color here with my properties just to make it look interesting. And we'll add a fillet to it just to make it look kind of neat. And I think what I'll add is a chamfer to the edge. Let's make the distance 2. We'll make the second one 2 as well. Grab an edge, hit enter. And then as we start to, model the parts, that's pretty good for right now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and 3D rotate it. And so what I would do is I would say 3D rotate, select the geometry, hit enter. Let's put the gizmo. That seems to be okay. Shift right mouse click so I can kind of see it. And then I'll drive that till it's north. And you can kind of see where we're going with that. We can use our 3D move command to kind of place that in the right orientation. And so I'm going to hit escape here. I probably would have added the spokes. I think the spokes would probably do it, and then a little bit of other mounting. But as we go through and we start to work with 2D and 3D, what you want to do is you want to kind of toggle back and forth to like a top view to keep your orientation, and then to be able to move things with things like 3D move to kind of get that the way that I want it. And so I'm just going to take that, move it to my vault area about right there. And then I'm going to go back through. I'm going to put that higher, shift middle mouse wheel, 3D move. You can say P for previous, and it'll take the previous selection. And then I'll just bring that up. And it's sort of the look that I'm going for as I go through and I create these different scenes. And so just like we did with the walls over here, I'm going to make this, yeah, I think that's fine. As we go through, I can go select the layer, make that layer current. I can go through and trace the wall again and put that at a specific height. And so if I go into a polyline, I can trace it with my O snaps for my vault. I think I'll go with this outer boundary here first. And what I think I'm going to do, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to just make this and then get my inside edge. Let's see where that's at. There we are. And then we'll make one more polyline. And what we want to do is we want to join those. And then we want to extrude that. And so what we'll do is we'll go through and we'll be on this layer here. We'll make the 3D wall layer current. And then we'll extrude that. To about the same height that we have here. And it's a little wonky, but you can see where we're going with that. And so as we create these different models, they don't have to be super perfect. But as you create them, what we want to do is we want to have sort of, a look for the layout for our bank vault. And so you can then put a 3-point UCS on here and create the front, and then cut a hole in the door and just have the door kind of swung open, sort of in a perspective like this. But you don't have to make it overly detailed. Okay, so as we look at some of the other components that we're working on, for example, the teller area, we can go and we can use Design Center. And so I'll say DC for my Design Center. There it is. It tends to hide on me. And then I can go through and I can do things like I can add my cabinetry for base cabinets if I want to for this area back here. Again, you can do this in the top view. We can come over here. We can add our cabinetry. And so let's just take 30 inch, maybe 24 inch. We just drag it in. We can orientate it in the top view. Take the defaults, take a look at it. Looks like I almost have it in the right orientation. I can turn it. And so I'll just use a regular rotate command on it. You may have to toggle out of the conceptual visual style. You can put on ortho as you work with this so that you'll get nice square countertops. Switch back to the top view. And then we'll place that in the corner. And then we can go and add the countertops and additional. And so you can always copy it once you have one of them set the way you like that. And then as you copy it, always use your object snaps to make sure that everything stays together and lined up. And then you can pull the wall up. It looks like I almost had them all. I had one off. But as we go through, let's just delete that one. And we'll copy one more. There we are. And so you can then model the countertops kind of in the same fashion, where we can make this layer current. And I like to just trace over them. You can always convert them to a closed boundary shape. And then we can extrude that. Oftentimes I'll get the object below it, so I'll just erase it. Extrude that 2 inches. And then as we go through and we create the other geometry, we can then bring that up to a height of, I think we have these at 27 inches, Al, right?
That's correct. 28 inches.
And so we'll bring that up 27. And then same thing for this shape right here. I can just use a rectangle. And then let's delete out that subline. And then we'll extrude that 2 inches. 3D move it 27 inches up. It looks like I was a little bit off on it. Let me just go and borrow this one. And so this one is the one that's off. Let's move it. Now I can see it. All right. And then we can get additional content from Design Center. And so if we look at things like furniture, we can get chairs. And I've been using the secretary chair. And you just drag and drop that in. Take the defaults for the scale height. And you can modify this if you like as we start to work with our content here. I'm just going to rotate this. Again, it's best to kind of drop into a top view and then line up the 3D elements on your 2D geometry like I did here, where I can come in, select that with the grip, move it to the placement, rotate it, select the grip, spacebar, move, spacebar, rotate, rotate it in the right orientation, bail out of that. And then we can also go through and add the other countertops. Once you have one of them on there, the rest go pretty quick. We'll copy it. We'll take the chair with it too. And we'll take it from the endpoint to the endpoint to the endpoint. And then we'll use that same technique to bring the walls up. where we can go through and we can press pull these, or we can select around them. Let's see if we can. I think I'll leave it as it is, but I think you know what I mean. We can go through and use that same technique to create that perimeter. And so you have these other elevations that you can go and measure off of. But that's pretty much what we're looking at. As we go through, we can then create different layouts within the drawing. And so if I wanted to double click in here for my vault door, create a nice layout for it. And I believe I think I'll just make a new layout for it. It's my teller elevations. There we are. That's the one I want. And so that's sort of where we're going with it. Model the rest of the countertop heights, place it in a viewport, put the countertops on, and feel free to enhance it. You can go out and grab some other content from Design Center. Al has some really great content in here, where we could put some other things on here other than furniture. Maybe some plants. This one's 2D, so I'll back off of that one. And I'm in the 2D modeling space. Here's a 3D plant. Let's take this one here. We'll just go with the default heights. And so that's our assignment. As we work on adding materials and rendering, what you may want to consider doing is to add a camera to the area. And so you should have a tab on here called Visualize. Now, if you don't see the Visualize tab, find an area in the ribbon and right mouse click, Show Tabs, and make sure that your Visualize tab is enabled. And then what you can do is you can add a camera to it. And so here's on our Visualize, we have lights, and here's cameras. And so you can create a camera, and we can just sort of say, okay, let's make the camera, let's make it like right here as we come in through this door. We can then have a focal point right here, and then we can exit that. We can name the camera. We could call it Vault View, and then exit that. And then if we double click on that camera, you can see what that view is going to look like in a conceptual view. And then as we work with the camera, we can adjust it to a perspective like that. And then next week, maybe what we can do is we can show them how to add some materials to it and be able to show those different views. And we can always actually put a path in and do some walkthroughs with it. So there's really a lot of great presentation aspects that you can work with AutoCAD. But that's just, more on top of what we want to do. We basically just want to have the views set up with our elevation drawings like this, and there's always more that we can always add to it. Alrighty, with that, I'm going to go back to the main splash page, and here we are in our D2L. I'm going to stop the recording and I'll post that. Remember, if you have any questions or if you need any assistance, you can always email us. Al, is there anything else that we want to add before I stop the recording?
No, just remind them that they have to have all their assignments as much as they can on or before May 10th, please.
Very good. So that's it. I'm going to stop the recording. Please have your work in by May 10th.